So let's start with probably my favorite pillar, emotional fitness. So who remembers the Aesop fable about the shepherd and the lion? If you don't, I'll remind you. There was once a ferocious, angry killer lion. He roared and roamed throughout the village, terrifying the villagers. One day, an unsuspecting shepherd was grazing around his flock and headed towards the mountain lion's den. Taking a few steps towards a cave, he heard a deep rumbling. His heart froze. He had awakened the lion, who feasted his eyes upon this tasty treat of a shepherd. The lion runs up to the shepherd, rears its hind legs up, and roars, "Arr! Arr!" ready to devour the shepherd whole. Suddenly, the shepherd noticed a giant thorn stuck in the paw of the lion. Feeling his fear subside, and without hesitating, he reaches towards the lion's paw and plucks out the thorn. And the lion pulls back on his hind legs and roars from joy, jumping around like a happy puppy and licking the shepherd's face. What's so powerful about this story is that it illustrates a basic confusion we all have about ourselves and others. We learn that the lion was not mean and angry. It just had a thorn in its paw. And the shepherd's fear subsides when he realizes this and how angry he would be if he had a thorn stuck in his paw too. See, I've met a lot of people in my life, and for all of the people who have done bad things, I met very few bad people. With that said, I have met a lot of people with thorns in their paws. This isn't just a little story about a shepherd and a thorn in the lion's paw. It's an outlook on life. How many of you recognize how you have had a thorn in your side that caused you to do some pretty foolish things that you're not proud of? I know I have. I didn't know it then, but most of the time, what I was doing was pretty much to get that rotten thorn out. How many of you can remember times when you realized others were acting from a thorn stuck in their paw, and by just removing that thorn, their whole lives would or could have changed? How many of you can recognize some thorns that you have in your paws? If you could just pluck them out, a whole flood of success, joy, peace, and purpose would come gushing into you. Our wounds, get this, our wounds will recreate themselves in the present for the purpose of healing them. If you don't heal wounds or find the thorns and pull them out, you'll suffer them repeatedly in your life, maybe for the rest of your life. They usually don't just dissolve. It will look like bad luck or other people's faults or circumstance, but unless you deal with the root cause, you'll keep experiencing the same results. And trust me, I know it's not easy to look at this. When I was 10 years old in Indian Guides, we took a yearly retreat with our dads to Catalina Island. I'll never forget. One day, one of the older kids was climbing off trail and fell into a cactus bush. For those of you who don't know, don't live here in California, cacti have the long, obvious thorns, the really big ones, and then there are the worst, insidious thorns that are almost microscopic and lodge in your skin. Sometimes you can't even see them, and most of the time you can't just pull them out with your fingers. It's not that easy. After all the thorns had been removed, the nurse looked at Alex and said, "Now rub your hands together. Rub your hands together." And Alex's face twisted as if to say, "Are you freaking kidding me, buddy? Kiss my butt. Rub your hands together. Rub your hands together." Reluctantly, Alex put his palms together and almost immediately cried out in pain. "Where is it?" the nurse asked. Alex pointed out a thorn. "Rub your hands together," the nurse asked again. Alex nearly leapt out of his chair and hit him. "Rub your palms together." Touching his palms together, Alex nearly shrieked again, feeling another thorn. Thrusting his palm out to the nurse this time, saying, "Here it is, here it is. The third and fourth time, the nurse didn't even have to ask Alex to rub his palms together. He was eager to get all the thorns out. Finally, through messy tears, he rubbed his hands together one final time and leapt up in a gigantic burst of joy. The joy of no more thorns, no more pain, no more suffering. All done, all done, all done. I remember the nurse saying that. All done, that's it. That's all it was. And Alex ran off with us to play catch before dinner. See, thorns are painful when they're in, and it can be painful taking them out, but once they're gone, that's it. There are lots of tools we use to remove the thorns, but the main thing to understand is this. The challenge for us all, the biggest one, will be having the courage, like Alex did, to keep rubbing our palms together, especially when it hurts, because it hurts. And no one can do that for you. And no one's forcing you to take out all the thorns in your life. But suffering doesn't end until all the thorns are out. And I started this whole thing with the emotional pillar because let's face it, quality of life begins with what you feel on a day-to-day basis. There's a poem I love called Richard Cory by E.A. Robinson about a man rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace, who everyone wanted to be like. Kind of like a celebrity, a Robin Williams, a Heath Ledger, an Elvis, who shockingly goes home one night and puts a bullet through his head. To make it a little bit more real, there was a billionaire who committed suicide for not having enough money. A billionaire not having enough money. He was heir to the Volkswagen estate, and he had about $10 billion and invested $9 billion in options for an acquisition of Porsche, and then boom! Porsche ends up acquiring Volkswagen, and he was left with a measly $1 billion and killed himself. Of course, he was under a lot of pressure, but this was at the height of the financial crisis. Had he waited 7 more years, he probably would have made back all the money. All the money. Now, was it really worth committing suicide over? I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to judge him or you or anybody, and I'm the last person who would say what's right and what's wrong, but I think this is a powerful story we can all learn from. You see, it's not what we get in life, but what we feel about it that makes a difference. How many of you have seen someone far worse off than you are, shining with absolute exuberant joy, and someone far better off than you are, burdened by gloom? People do crazy things to feel good, most of which don't actually work, at least not to help them feel good in a sustainable way. But let's not try to reinvent the wheel here. There are rules. There's literally a science of creating and changing state, which requires no special beliefs, no vows to a guru, no walking on your knees through hundreds of miles through the desert, and no 10,000